All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Dan Beenken with the UNI Center for Business Growth and Innovation. Today I'm joined by Andrea Rogers, who's the Director of Claims and the Risk Team over at the Accel Group. We're excited to have her here today to kind of talk us through how COVID is impacting your insurance, specifically your business insurance, and what considerations you might want to be thinking about right now. As we enter this, what has started to become a new normal, unfortunately, I think I'm into week 4 or 5 of working from home at this point. And I don't know, depending on what article I read, it seems like it could last for another few weeks or a few months or a few years of this distancing and whatnot that we're under right now. But anyway, our aim with all these programmings so far has been to bring you pertinent, timely information on how to cope with COVID from a business standpoint. So we've covered topics like the various stimulus packages. We've talked through things with a banker. We've had an attorney on to talk about bankruptcy, even if that is starting to look like an option. Unfortunately for yourself, we've talked to several folks, and so I encourage you to check out our archive at either cbgi.uni.edu or at advanceiowa.com. You'll find all of our programming there as well. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm joined by Andrea Rogers today from Cedar Rapids, I assume, or somewhere near Cedar Rapids. And Andrea, Cedar Rapids has been a little bit of the epicenter of COVID for Iowa for a little bit, although Black Hawk County, where I'm at, seems to be quickly overtaking you guys from a case count standpoint, unfortunately. But let's get into this, and we can take your questions as we go. We've got a Q&A box here in Zoom, and otherwise just please enter your questions there. So Andrea, you want to get started? Maybe introduce yourself first a little bit.
Absolutely. My name's Andrea Rogers. I'm with the Accel Group, and as Dan pointed out, I'm the Director of the Claims and Risk Improvement Team. So you guys are all lucky to be able to join and learn about insurance at 10 a.m. on a Thursday morning. I know it's the most exciting topic to hear about. A lot of what I do is consult with different businesses to talk about maybe what resources they have available from a risk improvement side to help mitigate loss. But then once claims happen, doing the dirty work of reviewing insurance policy language to help figure out what coverage you might have, advocating for coverage on businesses' behalfs with their insurance carrier, and helping to interpret what the policy language actually says. So from an insurance standpoint, I know that I knew I had insurance before I started working in the business industry, and I generally knew some of the things that it covered, but it wasn't until I started this role and reading the very challenging insurance policies before I started really understanding what insurance does and the different things that are potentially covered on policies that maybe businesses don't know or understand. And so this program today is going to kind of try to address some of those in this unknown area of COVID-19 and how your business insurance might relate to some of the policies that you have in place and things that you can do to help utilize those policies. So,
perfect. So it won't just be about, nope, it doesn't cover that. Nope, it doesn't cover that. Right?
I'm gonna try my best to just say, no, it's not covered. But I am gonna try to provide some resources and things to be thinking about as far as coverage goes, and some proactive things that you can be doing.
Perfect.
So,
I think that's important.
Great.
Awesome.
So the first one I get a lot of questions on is loss of business income. I think
Sure.
This is probably amid COVID-19 and everything going on, the thing we are seeing the most. So this is one, unfortunately, where I am going to say a lot of them, there is not coverage currently for a claim of loss of business income. The reason for that being is that these are usually triggered on a property policy, and most of the policy language requires a direct physical cause of loss. So generally it has to be a fire or a storm before that is triggered. A lot of the policies also have exclusions specifically for virus or pandemic. That was in response to the bird flu that happened a while ago, and they were seeking coverage, and so the insurance policies put those specific provisions in there. Now, not all policies are the same. So something you might want to do as a business is ask your agent for the policy language and specifically read to see if the direct physical loss or pandemic and virus exclusions are in the policy. For the most part,
I was just going to say, well, I'll let you finish, and then I got a question about that, maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For the most part, there will be that specific and pretty clear denial language. But if you don't find that, then there's a better basis to advocate that there should be coverage by your carrier. We're also seeing some people make some creative claims for civil authority orders. So if you're forced to close because of the governor's order or local order, there is some policy language for civil authority that could potentially trigger business income. So those are things to think about as well.
So it sounds like first thing I should do is at least ask or bug my insurance provider and say, hey, rather than just assuming no, let's ask instead. And then they'll probably send us the boiler template email that they've sent off to 50 other clients of theirs that says, well, here's your policy. Generally, they don't cover this kind of thing, but look, and then some keywords, like we're not going to read the thing verbatim, of course. So if we do a Control F type of searching through there, what words would you suggest, Andrea, that we utilize to type in there to look up what we may or may not be covered or uncovered for?
Yep. So anything that discusses virus, anything that discusses pandemic, those would be the specific exclusion, those things that they would say are excluding, potentially excluding coverage. So those are the words you're going to want to look for. Or if you just look under exclusions, see what it lists for exclusions there. Okay.
So maybe we don't see those words. Let's hope we don't see those words.
Yes.
And we reply back to Andrea or whoever might be managing our policy for us, and we say, hey, it looks like I might have something here. Hopefully they're going to come back to us with a broader conversation then at that point, right? About, well, you missed this. This is what they're saying, or maybe there is opportunity, but bottom line is let's check and look a little bit, it sounds like. Okay.
Yeah. The other thing I suggest is just for carriers or for businesses to file a claim with their carrier. It doesn't hurt at this point, and the worst that can happen is that you just get a denial letter. But if there is potentially some coverage, or somebody else says they don't think that they're interpreting the denial correctly and coverage is afforded to that carrier, it could change for all of the other people who filed a claim like that. So it probably doesn't help just to file a claim. And there's some legislators pushing for there to be some type of coverage through these types of policies retroactively. Now, I don't anticipate those going through, but probably better still to have a claim on file just in case that does happen.
Okay, so it sounds like similar to unemployment insurance. If we do file a claim right now, we're not going to get dinged. Our premium isn't going to go up next year because of that. Is that right?
If you file a claim and nothing's paid on it, shouldn't have any effect on your premium.
All right, perfect. Okay, thank you, Andrea.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second thing you were mentioning there was about if there's civil action taken, or whatever your phrasing was for that, if the governor, local county officials, whoever it might be, shut your industry down. Mm-hmm. Is there often exclusions for that too then within the language? Are there keywords we should look for that too, if I'm especially a bar, restaurant, etc. right now?
That would be something you'd want to look at to see if there is language for that in your policy that could trigger loss of business income. So if it can be triggered by civil authority, then or a local government shutdown, then you might want to look into filing a claim because of that.
Okay, and I got one more here. I almost hate to ask, but since that was kind of dedicated to business income, which is obviously the biggest one that people are, experiencing right now and thinking about and wondering, are you within the industry reading anything or seeing anything or hearing anything where people are getting paid out? Have you seen that yet?
I have not. I've seen many denials, and then the other ones I've seen are reservation of rights letters, which to me means we don't quite have enough to deny it, and we're still looking into it. But I think that there are also a lot of people investigating the language in the policy and getting attorneys that are maybe pushing back on some of the basis for denial. So,
Okay. Okay. All right. So TBD
yes,
sounds like a little bit. All right. Cool. Thank you, Andrea.
absolutely. So the next thing I thought that we'd talk about would be commercial auto policies. So I know now a lot of businesses that are still operating are now maybe providing services they didn't provide before, like delivering food, delivering items, services to people's homes. So the one thing I think is probably really important to consider is if you have people driving around that you maybe didn't before, you want to make sure that you have the appropriate auto policy coverage in place. So that would be if you have employees who maybe normally don't drive their vehicles for business use, but now they are delivering things to customers. A few things that probably you want to be considering. One, if they're using their personal auto, even if they have personal auto insurance, they need to make sure that their auto insurance carrier knows that they're using their auto for business use. They might be more flexible now, but I've seen many claims be denied, even though somebody has a personal auto policy, because they were using their car for business use, mostly deliveries, when that happened. So if you're an employer, you want to check with your employees and make sure that their personal auto coverage, if they're using that, knows they're using it for business use. And if you don't have an auto policy as an employer at all because you don't own any autos, you may also want to check to make sure that you have what's called hired and non-owned auto coverage on your business owner's policy or other general standard package. And that would help cover if your employee gets into an accident and causes liability, and maybe the damage or injuries are above the policy limits of the employee, then you have protection as the employer from that liability.
Okay. I would think it'd be pretty common for my consumer line auto coverage to want to deny a claim if I'm doing delivery work for my employer. I would think that they're quickly going to push that onto my employer, and that's their risk and their coverage. I mean, that's pretty correct, I would think, right, Andrea? And so if that's the case, this hired non-owned auto is probably pretty critical to have right now for those that are, maybe they don't have a fleet of cars, and so they're asking their employees to do delivery, they're reimbursing them mileage or whatever it might be. And okay. And what if they have vehicles, they got 2 cars owned by the company and they're sending Jimmy and Sally out in what normally was either the kind of personal or, business vehicle to do delivery work. So maybe they're, not doing a ton of it, but they're doing some of it. Is there any kind of specific add-on or language we got to make sure we have in our policy to cover Jimmy and Sally as they drive around doing that kind of stuff within
Just that hired and non-owned auto coverage. And some carriers right now will add that to some policies at no cost, recognizing that businesses are maybe having to do this. So it would be good to reach out to your insurance contact, your agent or the carrier, to see if they'll add that onto your policy if you don't currently have it. So I'd say, number one, if you have people driving around, first check to make sure you have something like that to cover your employees and your liability if there were to be an accident. And 2, if you don't, see if they will add that on is some value add in response to COVID-19, because some carriers are doing that.
So at least ask for the freebie first. Okay.
Yeah.
We maybe talk nicely, that type of thing. Okay. All right. What else we got here?
Some other things just from if you have vehicles and they're maybe not on a commercial auto policy, but you're using them for your business. From a personal line standpoint, I think maybe a lot of us have seen that a lot of carriers are offering discounts on auto policies. So looking into discounts, if you're having trouble with, finance, with income right now, asking for extensions on policy premiums being due. A lot of carriers are allowing for things like that. Flexible payment plans, and most carriers right now for really any type of insurance will not cancel your insurance policy for non-payment due to COVID-19. So if you're having struggles, and that's really across the board with making ends meet at this point as a business, that's something that you might want to consider, is talking to your insurance company about whether you can delay payment and still have coverage.
Okay, great. So this is beyond the P&C realm now. We're even talking about personal line stuff here as well, it sounds like. And I have seen where carriers, some of the big ones, I know Geico is doing like a 15% back type of thing.
Mhm.
I assume part of that is so we all don't go into our coverages and change them in terms of either increasing deductibles on comp and collision or dropping comp and collision altogether right now because we're hardly putting any miles on our vehicles. But, what's your advice to folks who are, and I know most of our people on are business owners first, but they're also, individuals with personal insurance as well. Is there any advice you have for folks on, is this an opportunity to save a few bucks for a little bit here because I'm not putting many miles on my car? What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a little time, different auto carriers are offering different discounts to either existing or even new clients, and I'm seeing them range from 7 to 15% range. So, now's a good time just to make sure you're getting a good price while you have time at home, and and have the information at home to get a quote.
Sure.
So that's a good way to save money, is just making sure you're getting the best rates for what you'd like, and that the carrier is providing some benefit amid this crisis, because quite a few of them are right now.
Okay, great. It's a good point, I think, for anybody to think about then.
Yeah.
Thanks, Andrea.
Yeah. So the next thing I was going to talk about is workers' compensation. So this is another question I get a lot. If we have employees that get COVID-19, are those going to be considered work comp claims? And the answer is they could be. And so the determination is very fact specific. It's also going to be state specific. But in general, most states have some sort of coverage for occupational disease. So these could be something that are covered under work comp. So the things that they would probably look at are, did it arise out of and in the course of their employment? So is it more likely that they got it at work than just out in the community? And then can they show that there was an exposure at work, or substantially greater risk? So when we're seeing some of those meat packing plants with 100, 200, 300 people that are all testing positive, the logical explanation is that they probably got it at work and not just in the community. So, if you have one employee that tests positive, that's very questionable as to whether they would have gotten it at work or in the community. And you might, as an employer, want to ask them, do you know if you were exposed to anybody at home or outside of work that maybe had it? Because that will be information you'd want to provide to your insurance carrier. But definitely things to be considering.
Okay, and with work comp, I kind of had the impression that there's no reason to have fear right now. Well, I mean, other than other fears, but from a monetary standpoint or an insurance standpoint, if you do have an employee that gets COVID-19 and you have to file a claim for that, it's not supposed to be at least affecting or penalizing you as the employer right now, and affecting your premiums downstream, similar to what we talked about earlier with filing a claim on your PNC, even if it doesn't get paid out, right? Or can you elaborate
So
on that a little bit from
I
what you
think
see?
I think that part of that might be if you file a claim for unemployment. So for unemployment insurance, if somebody files for unemployment, any of the unemployment insurance isn't charged to you for COVID-19 related layoffs. So
Okay.
that would be different.
But on the
But
work comp side, it
on the
is.
work comp side, if they are at this point, as far as I know, if they are deemed compensable work comp claims, then unless they make some changes to how they calculate premiums, which I do have a little note on the next slide, but it could affect your policy premiums going forward.
Okay. Okay.
So
So,
something that could have some effect. And some states are creating emergency orders. So Illinois created a pretty liberal emergency order recently for any employee who's considered essential, who's still working right now, that it's deemed that they got, it's presumed they got COVID-19 at work, unless they can, somebody can prove that they did not. So they're shifting the burden of proof from the employee proving they got it there to the employer proving they did not, to provide more, a quicker turnaround time on getting claims like this paid. So just things to think about in watching what states are doing. Missouri issued a similar emergency action, but it really is limited to emergency responders and frontline workers only. So
okay.
just keep an eye on state-specific things that are happening with regard to work comp as well.
And I don't know if I can ask you this, if you'll know, can you use PPP funds for, keeping someone from filing a claim, or I don't know, or otherwise, whatever.
So if there's a work comp claim, that wouldn't be coming, unless you're self-insured or have a high retention, it shouldn't be coming out of the business's pocket. The insurance carrier will be paying it. Where you'd see the impact is then the next year, if they have those claims and they don't discount them for COVID-19, then they could affect the premiums going forward.
Okay.
But one thing that insurance carriers are doing for businesses is providing some work comp policy relief. So again, if they're having trouble paying, they're not going to be canceled for non-payment on work comp premiums, which tend to be some of the higher policy premium amounts. Also, they are working on a class code for NCCI, which is how they calculate your workers' compensation premiums that would not count payroll. So they calculate work comp premiums by payroll.
Okay.
So they're going to have a new classification code that shouldn't count payroll for employees who will continue to get paid through like the PPP program, but aren't working right now.
Okay.
So that payroll should not count towards your next year's policy premium calculation.
Oh, cool. Okay. Okay.
So
Thanks for explaining that. That's kind of nice then.
yeah. Any other questions on the work comp?
I don't think so. I think that helps me out for sure.
And then the other thing I'm seeing quite a bit is cyber claims. I think with remote employees, there are an increase in cyber crimes and hacking at this point. So hopefully, if you have a cyber insurance policy as an employer, even if the employee is working from home, generally there should be coverage if they're working from home on a company-owned computer, or if they're working on their own computer but accessing the network. So that's something where if you have that policy, there should be coverage, but just making sure that employees know that at home, they could be at potentially higher risk, and just to provide some additional training for remote employees on just potential cyber claims, and not to click on the little email that says open me up, and or any email asking for money or anything like that. So
One question we're getting in on that one, and is about do I need to have, let's see, do I need to have any kind of documentation for training? Do you have any training suggestions?
So you don't have to have documentation for training if you have that coverage. It's just if you don't have that coverage, then there can be some limited coverage on other like general liability policies, but it's not as comprehensive. So providing employee training to just mitigate that risk in general will help, so that you're not, down for days at a time because nobody can access your server or your data because of a data hack.
Okay.
But for the cyber policies to kick in, you don't have to prove that you've done the training or anything.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And the other thing, just commercial general liability policies. So, just making sure when you're bringing customers back into places that you're doing as many things as you can to mitigate any type of exposure, not just for employees, but also customers. You should have some general civil or some general liability coverage if people are contracting it within your business. But first of all, in order for a claim like that to go forward, somebody would have to prove that they got it within your business and that you were somehow negligent for a claim like that to be successful. So just making sure that you're doing things, diligent about cleaning, diligent about still social distancing when you're bringing customers back in the door, and anything that you can do as a business to show that you're being proactive to reduce the spread of COVID-19 will help mitigate any claim for liability for exposure to COVID-19 in somebody's business.
Okay. I got another question here too. This one is about like waiting rooms. So I don't know, this person maybe is in healthcare or whatever, but anything that you've seen or like insurance companies maybe giving suggestions or guidance on what people should do with waiting rooms or places where people might be in contact with each other?
So I think best practices is still to try to promote social distancing as much as possible. So if it's pulling out every 2 chairs and, making sure people aren't standing close in close proximity, engineering efforts to make sure that you've got, the right ventilation filters in place that help the air exchange in those. So you're having cleaning the air more in those facilities. A lot of facilities are going to virtual waiting rooms. So they will text people when their appointment is near 5 to 10 minutes out, so they limit the number of people in the waiting room.
Okay.
So it's not all of those might be feasible, but different things to think about to proactively limit the number of people you have there at any given time.
Cool. Thanks for that one. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. That looks like I'm caught up on the questions here. So
we're all in this together. I just wanted to kind of touch on some of the different things that could be potential exposures and how insurance might respond to those types of things. Employment practices is something that, you want to make sure you're staying up on any of the new regulatory compliance on things like the Family First Coronavirus Response Act. But there are some things that are protecting employers and businesses, like businesses with fewer than 50 employees are exempt from civil actions brought by employees if they're not administering those correctly. So, those are all things to be considering, but the biggest thing is just to use the resources that you have available to you. Talk to your insurance companies, your insurance contacts, your insurance agents they should be providing you resources and information to help guide you through this. It's not an easy process at all. I still have problems interpreting some policy language when I read through it. So ask questions and use resources that you have to help get through this.
All right. It sounds like you're seeing a lot of different business models and how they're adjusting and adapting too. So,
Right.
I know folks are, often looking online or plugging into places like what we're offering to kind of think through what could they be doing differently or more effectively right now. It sounds like your insurance specialist is also going to have some ideas for you too. So that's
Absolutely.
awesome. Okay. Thank you so much, Andrea. This was awesome. I know that not everything is going to be covered, obviously, but
I wish it was, but
yeah, gave us some great things to do to look at. First of all, it sounds like, check your policy, maybe file a claim, at least talk to your agent. Don't just dismiss it as a assumption that there's no coverage for you type of thing. And then being proactive on some of these other mechanisms as well. And then I think it'll be interesting to see as people's policies come up for renewal once we get outside of this time frame of what hopefully will be a short time frame dealing with COVID. That paying attention to where am I getting dinged or am I getting dinged, and going through that will be another 2.0 type of process, won't it? So
exactly.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. Again, we've been joined by Andrea Rogers, the Director of Claims and Risk at the Accel Group. They've got locations all over Eastern Iowa and in Des Moines, I think, as well. So thank you so much for being with us today, Andrea. We appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day. Take care and stay safe.
Thank you. You too.